More than a dozen Good Samaritans stepped in to help a woman who was pinned underneath the car.
This video is about to show you the biggest and the most dramatic rescues that you have ever spotted on camera. From wild accidents to horrifying criminal cases, these hard rescues came as a huge breath of relief. So hang tight and relax. You are in for a thrilling ride that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's get started. Number 1. The woman under the bus. A woman was crossing the street when a racing bus collided with her. The rescue mission was harder than you can imagine. The bus had hit the 28-year-old woman and rolled her underneath the vehicle. It was a traumatizing sight for both the witnesses and the victim herself. The horrifying part was that the woman was awake while she remained trapped underneath the gigantic transit bus. She was being consoled by the witnesses until the firefighters arrived at the scene around 2 minutes later. The only hope was to fit high-pressure airbags underneath the vehicle and lift the massive 27,000-pound bus. The firefighters got to the job and lifted the vehicle. Just when there was enough gap, the woman stretched her arms outside and the firemen dragged her out by pulling her arms carefully. The poor woman was pinned under the bus for 16 minutes, but the firefighters got her out within 10 minutes. The astonishing part is that the woman sustained no serious injuries. There were no broken bones, just a few cuts and bruises. Number 2. The airplane that crashed. The Lion Air Boeing 737 was coming to Bali when it missed the runway and crashed into the sea. The scenes were nothing short of horrifying. As soon as it hit the sea, there was panic everywhere. People scrambled over one another as they tried to get out of the broken plane. Scared of getting drowned, the 108 passengers aboard jumped out of the emergency gates and started swimming to the shore, but there was simply too much chaos. The rescue teams were called to the scene. The police and the team of rescuers used rubber dinghies to help carry the passengers from the drowning plane to the shore. You can spot the huddle of people near the cliff, all in a state of disbelief. There were around 20 people who had suffered from injuries. They were sent to 3 different hospitals by the rescue team, who had spent hours taking all the passengers to safety. The reports are that the plane suffered from a massive crack on the rear part of the fuselage. It is a miracle that everyone aboard the plane survived the terrible ordeal. Number 3. The car that crashed into the ocean. This unlucky car had 4 helpless victims inside. When the passers-by spotted it being taken away by the waves, they couldn't believe their eyes. The mother had reportedly driven straight into the ocean while her 3 kids were seated inside. When the lifeguards saw the horrific scene unfolding before their eyes, they bolted towards the drowning car. A few other passers-by also joined in on the rescue when the waves kept pulling in the car with a massive force. The rescuers can be seen struggling to open the car doors, trying to find a way to pull out the poor victims. But it was not that easy. The big waves were smacking into them, and the car was being pulled into the ocean. The rescuers knew it was hopeless trying to get the doors to open. So they went from behind and got the trunk to pop open. They reached inside, grabbed the 3 children, and pulled them out of their seats. The 3 kids were of different ages, 3, 9, and 10 years, and were immediately taken to the paramedics who had arrived at the scene. The mother was also pulled out shortly after. Apparently, she was going through a mental health episode when she crashed the car into the sea. Nobody was injured, but the kids were sent to the Florida Department of Children and Families. Number 4. The diver that was trapped in a cave. A group of friends had gone in for a dive in the cave. But when they came back, one of them was left behind. It was as tragic as it could get. The friends took 8 dives in the last 11 hours back into the cave, but their friend was nowhere to be found. Apparently the guide trail was cut off in the middle, and the friend had gotten lost. But then, a light of hope came in the form of Ed Soren, the diver who was known for rescuing other trapped divers. He got inside the very dark check and searched every crook and corner of the 400-foot cave. He had stuck himself to a wall to guide him through the path, leaving a white trail behind to get him back to the surface. Then, an hour later, he saw a tangled-up mess of a yellow trail. He looked up and spotted a small shimmer in the water. The two looked at each other for a few seconds, trying to digest that the mission was successful. The two divers followed the white trail back and were finally out of the dark cave. The divers' anxious friends could not be more elated to see their friend alive. Number 5. Women pinned by car.
More than a dozen Good Samaritans stepped in to help a woman who was pinned underneath a car.
A horrible incident occurred on this sidewalk when a sedan crashed into 4 pedestrians and pinned 2 women underneath it. The scenes were too horrific, but there were superheroes nearby that rushed to their aid. The dashcam footage only caught half the scene. A pickup truck had taken a wide turn and had pushed the sedan brutally towards the sidewalk. The driver of the sedan could not control the car and had come at a blazing speed towards the sidewalk. The sedan crashed into the newspaper stand and the trash can and was halted by the towering pole. 2 women had become trapped underneath the car's front tires because of the incident. They were conscious, though, were shouting for help. The pleas were heard by the passers-by, and around 12 people came running towards the sedan to lift the vehicle. With a united shove, the superheroes managed to lift the 3,000-pound car and pulled the 2 women out. One of them had to go through surgery, but the other woman only sustained a fracture in her hand. Number 6. Woman trapped in a fiery car. A truck had gone berserk at the highway, losing control and leading up to a massive 10-car pileup. But there was one absolutely urgent rescue. The trailer had smacked into the nearby cars, causing some of the vehicles to crash into each other. But one car had been pushed against the concrete block, catching fire during the incident. The spectators could not believe their eyes when they saw a woman trapped inside the fiery car, screaming for help. They knew that rescue would have taken too much time to reach, and they must take action right there and then. A few people rushed to her aid and tried to smack the door of the burning car. But the fire started heating up, eventually flaring up even more and causing a blockade for the rescuers. One brave driver on the scene had a fire extinguisher in his hands. He darted towards the car to put the fire out as the other people cracked the door open. They pulled the woman out and took her far away from the car. Surprisingly, she had only sustained a few bruises and cuts. Number 7. Children kidnapped. In this horrifying footage, a trooper came across a car that looked quite suspicious. What he found later was quite terrifying, forcing him to pull an urgent rescue mission. The trooper spotted a car speeding on the roads and taking one unusually dangerous turn. He had no choice but to pull a traffic stop on the car. He had no clue that the ordinary traffic stop would turn into a rescue mission. The driver was way too drunk to be driving. He was disoriented and couldn't even find his wallet that was right there in his lap. But that's not what put the trooper into suspicion.
You took that curve way too fast.
I did. I'm sorry.
I thought you were going to crash.
There were 6 kids in the car, aged 13 to 14 years old. The trooper asked the driver who these kids were to him. He replied absurdly that they were his friends, causing further doubt in the trooper's mind. He even claimed that the girl sitting behind him was 18, although she looked nothing like an adult. The driver was pulled out only to find that his zipper was open. The trooper took him away for sobriety tests while the kids were interrogated. They were nowhere near 18 and had been stripped away from their families. The trooper called their parents and single-handedly saved the kids from horrifying consequences. Number 8. Yacht flipped in the ocean. This yacht was tipped over by a massive wave in the sea, sending the man into the sea. The Coast Guard got into action and saved the man from drowning. A chopper was sent to the location as a rescuer trickled down the rope to get near the drowning man. He swam towards the yacht, pulled the man out, and grabbed him in a tight grasp. The two men were pulled up by the rope and back into the chopper. The interesting thing was that the yacht was stolen and the man was a wanted criminal. He did not suffer any injuries, but was sent to the police after his medical assessment. Number 9. Trafficking ring in Colombia. This rescue mission was to save the tens of kids who had been kidnapped and were being forced to do inappropriate activities. Even with the mission's success, the pain was evident. An undercover operation was set up to catch the traffickers who had been working secretly on the island to sell kids. The main man was sent to the island, and within half an hour of his stay, he had attracted the traffickers. A guy asked the undercover agent why he was there, and within minutes, he was striking a deal with the agent. The trafficking ring would lure kids with modeling jobs and then kidnap them for their vile means. The kids were as little as 11 years old. When the undercover team was carrying out the deal, around 54 boys and girls were brought into a cabin. They were not more than 18 years of age. They would usually be given cocaine, candies, and drinks to keep them busy inside the room. But at the time the transaction was done, 25 special agents came rushing towards the cabin. They arrested around 5 suspects, and the kids were immediately taken to safety. Around 29 of them were underage, but they were all sent for medical treatment and rehabilitation. Who knows what more damage could have been done to these little kids if the undercover team hadn't been sent in time. Number 10. Passengers trapped in a fiery crash. A rescue was started by these two brave men from the police department who were deemed heroes when the video went viral. A car was driving along the streets in the late hours of the night when the sound of a car crash engulfed the air. The officers rushed to the scene to find that the car had crashed straight into a tree and caught flames due to the collision. The officer rushed to the passenger side and cracked the door open. They pulled out the passenger, who could be seen burning in flames. They rolled the victim on the grass to put the fire out. The fire on the car was flaring loudly, and the heat was catching up to the other passenger. They then bolted towards the driver's seat to get the other victim out safely, but that part was not recorded in the body cam footage. The firefighters came to extinguish the fire after the rescue. The 2 passengers were sent straight to the hospital, but their condition remains unknown to the media. Number 11. The dangling truck. This stunning and dramatic rescue mission seems straight out of a movie. A truck and 2 other vehicles had collided with each other on the bridge, sending the truck off the roadway and its head out of the railings. The truck was suspended in the air with its female driver still stuck in the seat. The woman's life was hanging in balance when the firefighters arrived at the scene. A firefighter was sent down a rope to the truck's head, where the woman remained seated, visibly shaking in fear. The firefighter calmed her down as she stared directly into the sea, fearing the worst. The truck could have fallen any minute, so the rescuers knew they needed to hurry. The firefighter reached out into the hanging truck's window and grabbed the woman. He pulled her outside and held her firmly in a tight grasp as the ropes were slowly pulled upwards to bring the duo back to safety. The woman had not suffered any life-threatening injuries, but was still taken to a medical team. The same cannot be said about the passengers in the other 2 vehicles, as they were being treated for their injuries. It was the daring firefighter who kept his calm in the toughest of situations and handled the rescue mission with utmost bravery. Otherwise, the consequences would have been much different. Number 12. The man inside the speeding Jeep. This rescue mission was done by some good passers-by who were at the site at the right place and at the right time. A Jeep had derailed off the tracks when it came darting at a full pace and crashed into a wall. The Jeep was almost on the verge of flipping when 2 kind citizens saw the fiasco unfolding. Without caring much about their own lives, they rushed to the Jeep, which was still running. One of them had a baseball bat in the trunk of their car and used it to smash the window. When the window cracked open, they ushered the smoke out of the scene. They found the engine running and immediately turned it off, only to find that the driver was unconscious. He might have fainted due to the impact of the crash. The scary part was that the driver had his foot on the accelerator, which is why the car was still running and could have easily flipped off, taking the driver and the kind strangers with it. But the rescuers managed to turn off the car and save the driver, all in one epic rescue mission. Number 13, the exploding house. Nothing could have predicted that this rescue mission would turn out to be this dangerous. A chaotic scene was unfolding at a house when a Colombian police officer arrived at the scene. The veteran of 12 years saw a moment pretty terrifying that would have halted anyone in their footsteps. There was an explosion right at the moment when he stepped out of his vehicle. Shards of glass flew everywhere and a fire erupted from the house. But this brave veteran knew he had to risk his own life to save the people inside the burning house. So he rushed towards the chaos and saw 3 people coughing loudly. All of them were pointing at the house, forcing the officer to think there was someone inside. He bolted inside to find a woman at the front entrance. She was reported to be disabled and could not have survived the fire on her own. The officer grabbed her in a hurry, securing her in his grasp, and rushed out of the fire. The firefighters were called to extinguish the fire, but it was reported that the scene was pretty fragile. The house could have had more explosions because of the numerous oxygen tanks inside. Thankfully, the fire was put out and the people were safely secured. Number 14, nearly drowned. This rescue will send shivers down your spine. A 4-year-old autistic kid had come running towards the pool and leaped inside. The neighbor's kids saw the whole scene and rushed to get his father. When the father came, the boy had been inside the pool for more than 3 minutes. He pulled the kid out, gave him CPR, and saved the boy with quick thinking. The boy's mother had averted her eyes for 1 minute to take care of the boy's younger sibling, a 4-month-old baby. The boy was alive and well when he coughed up water. His mother was grateful to the neighbor for managing the rescue. Number 15, the girl that was kidnapped. This kidnapping scene is every parent's worst nightmare, but thanks to a kind citizen, the rescue mission was successful. In the evening, a little girl, not more than 6 years old, was riding her bicycle around the neighborhood. Suddenly, a red car came running towards the girl. A strange man got out, grabbed the girl, and threw her in his car. Another witness had seen the whole scene happening before him. He dropped everything and ran after the getaway vehicle in his car. Halfway through his pursuit, he came across a police car. He went to them to inform them about the whole scene and even gave the cops half the license plate of the suspect's vehicle. The cops rushed to the red car and pulled the little girl out of the passenger seat. She was crying hysterically and pleading for her father to be there. The cop picked her up gently, consoled her, and took her back to her family. The kidnapper was arrested on the scene. It was the stranger who had reported the scene, and the rescue mission had been successful. Number 16, woman caged inside vehicle. A woman was rescued just in time by the officers, or it could have ended very badly for her. A man was seen reportedly dragging a woman into the woods. A few witnesses spotted the unusual scene and chased after the couple. By the time a kind citizen got there, the man was already in his vehicle driving away. The good citizen called the cops and described the whole scene. The cops went with guns blazing after the white van. After a high-speed chase, the cops finally had the van cornered and could hear the woman shouting and pleading for help from the inside. The cops had to negotiate with the suspect and were able to get the victim out safely first. They rushed to the van and slammed the window, only to find that the woman had been at the back of the vehicle. When they opened the trunk, they found something very disturbing. The white van had a cage in the back, and there were wire cages over the windows which were painted to blur the vision from the outside. The suspect was immediately taken under arrest, who was inside the van too. He did not make it easy, and the cops had to tase him to detain him. The woman was sent to the hospital because she was bleeding. Reports show that she had been beaten over 30 times on her head by the crazy kidnapper with a tire iron. She is recovering and is traumatized, but she was grateful for the cops to save her in time. Number 17. The man who was electrocuted. This man would not have been alive today if he hadn't been rescued in time. A few citizens were working nearby when they spotted a man floating in the pool unconscious. They called the cops, who immediately started doing CPR on him. The cops were in action for more than 5 minutes when the EMS arrived at the scene. They told the officer to keep doing the CPR while they set up the defibrillator. At the first shot, they got a pulse from the man. He was immediately taken to the hospital. The reports claimed that he had been electrocuted by a loose ground wire that had rendered him unconscious. Luckily, the man suffered no injuries and was saved by the cops and the EMS just in time. Number 18. Baby in danger. A terrifying scene had unfolded on the bridge, but a kind man made sure that he could be of help. A violent car crash forced a pickup truck to be pushed against the concrete barrier of the bridge. Half of it was dangling out of the bridge, but it was not the most frightening moment of the whole incident. An 18-month-old girl had been thrown out of the vehicle when the crash happened. She went straight into the sea and was found floating on the water. Her car seat remained a few feet away, while the baby girl kicked and moved, clearly disoriented from the whole situation. But then a motorist came and saw the little girl that was drowning in the water. Without any care for his own life, he jumped into the water and swam to the baby's aid. He picked her up on his shoulder and slapped her back. The baby immediately threw out water and started coughing. The motorist then took the baby to a nearby boat for safety and then climbed the ladder up to the boat himself. If it wasn't for this man who had dove into the water without a second thought, the baby would have been in extreme danger. That's all on the rescues that can send anyone into a state of shock. Which one was your favorite rescue mission? Let us know in the comments. Plus, if you have a rescue story in mind, do share it with us too. We would love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We will keep you posted on the latest updates. Until then, goodbye and thanks for watching.